We need a way to be able to move users between this contacted tab and uncontacted tabs. And honestly, the easiest thing to do is to go into Prospects View, find the VStack we're using for our list rows, and add some swipe actions here. And this allows users to swipe from right to left to reveal an option to mark this person as being spoken to or not. Now remember, this view, Prospects View, is used in 3 different tabs: everyone, contacted, and uncontacted. And so it's important the swipe actions look correct, no matter where this person is being shown on the screen. Now we could try and use a whole bunch of ternary conditional operators to build an exact right layout, but it's very complex. And actually here we're going to add a button later on to also show a notification option for people you haven't spoken to yet. And so it doesn't really help things trying to use ternary conditionals here. So we'll just wrap it all in a simple if statement. So add this to your VStack in Prospects View. There are swipe actions here. Then a simple if statement. If the prospect dot is contacted, make a button which does prospect dot is contacted dot toggle. So flip it from true to false. With the label being label mark uncontacted, because they are currently contacted, we'll mark them uncontacted. With the system image being person.crop.circle.badge.xmark. Beautifully descriptive. It's a person cropped around a circle with an X mark badge over it. That's if they are contacted. If they aren't contacted, I'll copy and paste that same button code down to the else block, and I'll say we want to mark them contacted. And this will also be person.crop.circle. We'll add to this instead .fill.badge.checkmark. So put a checkmark badge over them instead. Now to make this button stand out more clearly, I'll give each of them a tint. When they are currently contacted, I'll use a tint of blue. And if they are not contacted, I'll do a tint of green, like that. Now the text for this is fine, and the image is fine, but the action is not fine. The action probably won't do what you think it's going to do. Let's give it a try. So I'll add some sample data. I'll just press this scan and choose tap to get simulated data. And there's me in everyone. Of course, contacted will be empty, and uncontacted will be showed me because I'm not contacted yet. Now in everyone, I'm going to swipe, and you see our little green check button here to mark contacted. I'll choose that now. But if I swipe again, it's still there. And over in uncontacted, I'm still there with the same button. So it hasn't actually worked. It should have transferred me over contacted, and it hasn't done. So the app isn't quite working correctly. And this happens because over in our prospects class here, we are marking the people array as being published, which means when the array changes, announce it to SwiftUI views, which sounds like it should work. But that only works if we add or remove items or edit, like place new items in the array directly, if the array is actually changing. But what's actually happening here is we are changing an instance inside the array. And SwiftUI can't see that. It's got one person inside. We aren't adding or removing or replacing it with something else. We're just changing one value inside there. And SwiftUI isn't watching every possible property of everything inside the array. That'd be very, very slow. So it's not going to detect the change. It won't refresh the view. To fix this, we've got to tell SwiftUI by hand that something important has changed. So rather than just flipping a simple Boolean here, yes, I've been spoken to or not, we're instead going to call a method on our prospect object. So it'll call the toggle thing for us automatically inside there, while also sending a change notification out. So in our class here, we'll make a new method called toggle, which takes a prospect here. It then goes ahead and does prospect.isContacted.toggle, just like before. Before it does that, we'll also say object will change.send. Now it's called object will change, and that matters. You should call this thing before changing your value. So SwiftUI gets all the animations correct. Don't do it afterwards. Don't try and do this. You want to do it before, like that. And now, back in our button code, we don't toggle the Boolean directly. We instead say prospects.toggle that prospect. Do it for us. And it'll do the same toggle Boolean, but it'll also notify SwiftUI it's about to change. And now, all being well, you should see the whole thing works a lot better. I'll run it again. I'll add our test user. Here I am. I'll swipe over. I'll press contacted. And now I should be in this tab and not in this tab. And of course, back in everyone again, swipe again, you'll see to remove. So it's now working correctly, which is exactly what we wanted to do. Now go between the green and blue button states. Now we could leave it there, right? It now actually works. But there's one more change I want to make, again, to help develop your knowledge of building good software as your skills increase. As you saw, when I was just futzing with is contacted directly by toggling the Boolean, it didn't work. It just caused problems. And so, yes, internally, the Boolean was flipping between true and false. That was happening. But the UI was stale, we call it. It was out of date information. The Boolean here was not being reflected in our SwiftUI view. If we leave our code as it is right now, yes, it works, but it's possible that we or some other developers in the future might forget about this particular problem with toggling Booleans, and so they might try and toggle the Boolean from somewhere else. That's a bad idea. That'll just cause more bugs. Now, SwiftUI can actually help us mitigate this problem by stopping us from modifying the Boolean from outside of prospect.swift. There's a very specific access control option called file private, which means this property can only be used inside this file, in our case, prospect.swift. And of course, we still want to read that value elsewhere to show the right button elsewhere. And so we can actually say file private set. You can read it from anywhere. You can modify it only from the current file. This is the exact combination we want to make sure the Boolean is safe to use. And so we'll modify the is contacted property to be file private set, like that. And it hasn't affected our project here, but it does help keep us safe in the future. And if earlier you're wondering, why is he putting this prospect class and prospects in the same file? Now you know why, because it makes file private work beautifully.